Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Weekly Blitz. My name is Joel Moran. My co-host Jackson McIntyre is also here with me, and we have a special guest on the show, the Theo Ash NFL. You can find him on Twitter, on TikTok, very big following and very knowledgeable about the sport. Theo, we're very happy to have you on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
I don't know what you guys want to start off with first because we got a lot of topics to talk about. But we just witnessed a Monday Night Football game that both teams wanted to lose for some reason. Theo, do you want to speak on that? And do you think the Jet season is over?
I still don't think it's over just because I feel like the second tier of the AFC is so underwhelming this year. Teams like the Bengals, teams like the Chargers, teams like, like the Dolphins, other teams in their division, even the Bills, right? They gave them for a run for their money tonight. I just don't think that they are falling too far behind the pack in this year's AFC. It's not quite the juggernaut conference we expected, but it is getting tougher and tougher the more early ones they lose here.
Yeah, and Rodgers looked back. I mean, this was probably his best game of the year. He had some insane throws. So if he's playing like that, they've still got a chance. Like Theo mentioned, the AFC is rough. The Bengals are going to be coming back on that week schedule too, but they're definitely still in play.
I look at the way the Jets games have ended. Week 4, we're down 10-9. Greg Zuerlein misses a field goal that would have won us the game. Week 5, Aaron Rodgers, 23-17 down to the Vikings, and he throws an interception, miscommunication with Mike Williams. And then this game, I don't know if that pass was on Aaron, if it was on Mike Williams not working back to the ball. Whatever the case may be, right now there's just so much communication issues with the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers isn't on the same page with anybody outside of Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard. I do think that this was one of our better offensive performances of the year, but at the same time, even if I account for the 2 missed field goals and I take away the Hail Mary touchdown at the end of the first half because I feel like that's more lucky than anything, the Jets scored 19 total offensive points. They had 10-plus penalties on the game. This is just an undisciplined football team, and part of me hopes that maybe Davante Adams could just come in here and save everything. But I think firing Saleh was premature, and I don't know who was at hand in it. Was it Woody Johnson only? Was it Aaron and Woody Johnson? But they're just a mess right now, and I understand everybody hopping off the Jets bandwagon completely.
Yeah, it didn't really feel like their defense was as sharp tonight as it has been over the past few years. I feel like that touchdown to Matt Collins at the back of the end zone was really easy. I get it. You have to spy Josh Allen, but to have 2 of them and everybody just kind of playing man coverage, that doesn't really feel like Saleh's way. I think he likes to distribute things more in zone, and playing the straight man tonight got him in trouble. They didn't really have a pass rush. They couldn't contain Josh Allen whatsoever in the first half. Things locked in the second. I'll have to see. Maybe that made some good adjustments, but especially early in this game, I was like, man, your offense is going to lock in or it's not. Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson are going to lock in or they're not. Saleh's got the defense, and he has had the defense, playing at a high level since he's been there. He can't speed up the Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson connection or fix Tyron Smith's back. I completely agree with you that it was a little bit early, and I think it kind of showed tonight.
Yeah, DJ Reed injured too, so hope he's good to go rolling forward.
He was a penalty machine tonight. My goodness.
Yeah.
Don't
Everybody was. Everybody
was. No, yeah. I just don't understand what it is when it comes to the Jets and there's expectations involved. Last year, it ended after week 1 because the Aaron Rodgers injury happened. Breece Hall, I think his vision is spotty. I was talking to Theo about this before the show. Let me know what you guys think of it. Does it feel like sometimes Breece Hall is just running into the wrong hole? Like the last drive, Tyron Smith gets beat by Rasul Douglas, but I also felt like there was outside leverage there to bounce the run outside, and then Breece took it inside, and it allowed Rasul to make the tackle. The big run that he had that didn't get into the end zone where I feel like he could have cut it back. Are those things that you're kind of noticing with Breece Hall too?
I'll have to really dive into the film. I feel like when I've watched this team, I've watched so much for Rodgers and Wilson, and I've just kind of been expecting Breece Hall to do his thing, but it really hasn't come. I do think that this offensive line has really struggled. I'll say that, and that's kind of where my blame goes to the most. I know against the Patriots, even they had a good rushing performance, but there were a lot of like just free hitters. They can't protect against play action either, which kind of makes me, that's not entirely run blocking, but kind of similar more than almost straight passing dropbacks. Like they can't block that either. So I do put most of the blame on the line, but like I see what you're saying about that Brees cutback, and definitely on that long run, I thought he was going to totally cut back and score. And there are a couple moments where I'm like, maybe there was a little bit of meat on the bone from Brees Hall. So that's something I'm curious to maybe go back and watch more of.
Yeah, and Theo, I still remember that DeAndre Swift vision tweet you put out a while back that got endless amounts of hate, and here we are with a big fat contract later, and he's still having those same issues. So,
yeah, it hasn't been that obvious for Brees Hall if it is happening, but there definitely are a couple moments where,
yeah,
I guess where you're coming from.
And Swift has a couple of good performances, and it's like, oh, you see, he's not that bad. He's not that bad.
I could go on and on about Swift. Here's the thing about Swift. He's also not that elusive, I feel like.
yeah,
and to just pile on because he's having 3 good weeks, but he doesn't have great vision, and I feel like he's not the best tackle breaker. It's like, I just don't know why they gave him that.
Coming into this game, Brees Hall's highest yards before contact in a game was 0.5. He had a couple of his first 5 games with negative yards before carry. So, I mean, that's going to be the driving factor here in the lack of production we've seen from him this year. But
now, to put a bow on this Jets-Bills Monday Night Football recap, we talked a lot about the Jets. Are you worried about the Bills in any way? Because they could have very well lost this game as well.
I am not too crazy worried because I think Josh Allen is one of the best in the world, or the best in the world, and I think he showed so many huge plays tonight, and I think it can sustain over the course of the year. Like, I know that's a question that Peyton was asking on the Manning cast, like, oh, there's all these big plays, I don't know. It's like, but Josh Allen, it always can, and they're getting Milano back. I do think that they're getting Von Miller back. I don't think that they're perfect, but I'm not too worried about them because, again, like this AFC is a little bit weaker than maybe we thought. Like the Chiefs, I think they could be the Chiefs, but the Rashee Rice out for the year. So I'm not too worried about them.
It's all weapons, man. Like all these top teams right now in the AFC, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, the Chargers, even, they have no weapons. And like that's a problem in playoffs. You need players that can generate consistent separation. And if you have to manufacture that every time with precise play calling, not every head coach or offensive coordinator can do that. So I mean, Davante Adams, Amari Cooper are out there right now, and those are 2 guys that I think would elevate any of those teams that I mentioned.
I love that you mentioned the weapons point because right now, outside of Travis Kelce, of course, because he could get hot at any time, Zay Flowers is the best receiver amongst that big 3 right there. And I feel like because of, now I'm kind of switching topics a little bit, but this was an interesting point you made, that kind of makes me higher on the Ravens just because they have an elite rushing attack, and Derrick Henry has been so pivotal for them in their success this season. I mean, Lamar and Derrick Henry are both 1 and 2 in yards per carry, and the Ravens look legit. The defense, the secondary is still kind of scaring me a little bit. There's a lot of stuff there that I don't like, but This offense looks like the most consistent offense by far amongst those top 3 teams.
Yeah, they've got a lot of weapons, and they've got a running back that is all pro. I mean, tonight it's Ray Davis for the Bills. The Chiefs are at Carson Steele. The fact that you can leverage Lamar and Derrick Henry is such a scary proposition. And then add on top of that, yeah, they do have the most dangerous wide receiver of the big 3 right now. I'm really liking the way they're looking.
Especially the way that they use that this week, because obviously you've got the read option that manufactures an extra gap. So the defense has to account for another gap on the read option. But this past Sunday, they were playing off of that to Zay Flowers a lot more. And they were utilizing his yards after catch skill set, those short dink and dunk plays that he can take with his insane burst and just that shiftiness that he has, where it hadn't felt like a consistent enough part of their offense going into Sunday. And this was like that encapsulation of that. And that was kind of the blueprint for how to use him to maximize his ability in that offense. So I'm going to watch that going forward.
I really want to talk about the NFC North, and we sent you the topic list, Theo, so I know you're ready to dive into it too. 4 of the leading teams in point differential are coming from the NFC North right now. The Minnesota Vikings, the Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers, and the Chicago Bears. We can talk about the Vikings first because they're the undefeated team. Now, Jackson, coming off the bye week, how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings look good. We've got a big Vikings-Lions showdown, and with that Aidan Hutchinson injury, that's going to change things a lot. The Lions coverage was the 6th best coverage unit against the pass in EPA. That's going to look a lot different with a 38% win rate pass rusher out now. And I mean, like, to put that into perspective, a 38% win rate on pass rush reps is the highest going back as far as I could. I went back to 2020, and now it was a sample size. There was probably going to be some regression, but 38%. So last year, the number 1 was Myles Garrett at 27%. Number 2 was Parsons at 24%. Number 3 was Aaron Donald at 22%. In 2022, it was Garrett at 22%. In 2021, it was Crosby at 24%. 2020 was Aaron Donald at 22%. So like none of these guys, like one time it was over 25%. And you're removing the guy who was responsible for 38% of their 118 total team pressures. That's going to have a big effect on coverage. And I don't know, like they've got decent corners, they've got stud safeties, they've got good linebackers, they can cover, but this is still going to be an issue. And I think that we're going to see a dip in that defense going forward. And I think that kind of levels out the division, and that can kind of push back on that whole narrative that the Lions are coming for the NFC North.
Yeah, it's a huge injury, man. Their edge room is so poorly constructed right now. They just have no answer when Aidan Hutchinson goes out. I mean, Josh Pascal was a 3 technique in college, like 4-eye, like inside the tackles guy. Their other guy, 53, whose name I keep forgetting, that came in after Hutchinson went down, is a converted inside linebacker. And they have no juice on the edge. The pockets are always super wide. You're going to be able to let guys, these big-time quarterbacks, just scramble out either direction, really stress these defensive backs. They have good players in the middle. I like Makai Wingo, Onwuzurike, DJ Reader, Aleem McNeil. Like, you can work them on stunts. You can get some interior pressure. Zach Martin is a good guard, and I think PFF had him with a 0 grade.
It was the worst game of his career.
You ever see a 0 grade Jackson doing work with PFF?
I believe that Ed Ingram, Vikings right guard, had one in pass blocking last year. He might have done it twice.
Ooh,
my memory serves me right. But yeah, it's rare.
You don't want to be in rookie Ed Ingram conversations if you're Zach Martin. So, I mean, they're not totally screwed because of how good their offense is, because they still have some playmakers at different levels on defense. But man, their edge room is just instantly the worst in the league. It's going to be hard to overcome.
I feel like the Vikings have to be feeling great about themselves. I mean, you're going to face the Lions when they don't have Aidan Hutchinson. They just don't have any edge presence now. To put the loss into perspective, and I kind of do feel like they're screwed. Unless they trade for an edge rusher that has the same like ability to change a game like a Max Crosby, which is very unrealistic, I don't know how they survive defensively. So before the Cowboys game, they were 21st in dropback EPA. The Cowboys game bumped them to 9th in dropback EPA. That's how much they dominated the Cowboys. But Aidan Hutchinson, 45 total pressures on the season. Onwuzurike, Reader have a combined 45 pressures on the season, along with Aleem McNeil and Josh Pascal. So 4 of their defensive linemen combined for Aidan Hutchinson and what he was producing for you. If they don't have any edge presence, you're covering for longer durations of time on already a secondary that has tendencies to hold on and be overly physical, and that's how they want to play, like bump them up man coverage. I just don't know how the Lions survive defensively moving forward.
Just be the best run defense, maybe. Like maybe they can go like Wingo on the edge or like Onwuzurike on the edge and just say like just collapse everything and hold on, Tyrion.
Yeah, not sure if we shouted it out, but Marcus Davenport out for the season as well.
Yeah.
No, those are the 2 edge rushers coming into the year, Aidan and Marcus. Marcus has been out with an elbow injury, and he's out for the year. I feel like unless they get like a Jadeveon Clowney and Hassan Reddick, like if they make trades for both of those guys, it can maybe cancel out the impact that Aidan brought, but even then, that's a long shot for them to make. And Dan Campbell was doing his coach speak and saying, hey, listen, we got guys that are going to step up, but you're not replacing Aidan Hutchinson. I think he was like a top 3 defensive player of the year candidate. He probably was number 1, and you don't have him anymore. I'm curious to see how the Lions look against Brian Flores this upcoming week, though. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Sam Darnold can bounce back. Like, I feel like that's the point of failure for the Vikings. It started to show cracks against the Jets. Like, he wasn't very accurate. He has been putting the ball in harm's way a decent amount, whether it be with picks or sacks or fumbles over the course of the first few weeks of the season. So he's been big time, right? He's got a big arm. Like, he's willing to try some big time throws, and he's got weapons who can reward him. But I still think that if you can push on him and make him answer the bell and keep things close, like the Packers kind of did it too, where they fell behind so far, but they kept scoring points, and Darnold made a few mistakes and turned the ball over. And so I certainly don't think the loss of Aidan Hutchinson kills the Lions in this game. Like, the Vikings are 5-0, I know, but I would have put the Lions as favorites, at least before the Hutchinson injury. I don't know if it's out of the question that they win at all.
Yeah, it's a big game for Darnold. It's coming off a bye week. The last 2 games, I think he was pretty suspect, and some of that ball placement was looking like he was not really, he was kind of aiming balls and they were falling in harm's way in between 2 defenders. There was one deep ball down the corner or down the sideline that went in between the corner and the safety who was trying to close. And like, it wasn't picked off because it was like awkwardly in between them. But if it had been either way to the left or right, it was a sure pick. So, I mean, there's a lot of pressure right now. The media is getting loud, and this is like is he going to bounce back, or has like the crumble started? So
yeah, and Aaron Jones is also questionable, and they had 7 rushing yards after he went out in the last game. So
yeah, well, Ty Chandler is not like he not that yards after contact. He does not break tackles. It's going to be rough if he's the guy.
Can't handle the pitch, I guess.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Shout out to RBIS. I had the Packers winning the NFC North before the season, and my Super Bowl pick was either them or the Lions. I thought those were the 2 best teams in the NFC. But now with this Aidan injury, I think the Packers, even with the Vikings hot start, end up winning the division. And I know that you're a Packers fan, Theo. I'm excited to talk about this team, both offensively and defensively, because they're doing some great stuff on both sides. We could talk about the offense first. How do you think just how good Jordan Love is?
I think that he is not quite a tier 1 guy yet. I honestly was a little bit underwhelmed the first 2 weeks of the year compared to how hot he closed last year. It's like his completion percentage was 55%, a lot of underthrows, some silly interceptions, some silly decisions. So the first 2 weeks, I would have said, he has regressed a little bit. He maybe hasn't cemented himself as a top 10 guy yet. Over for sure guys like Purdy, guys like Geno, guys like, I don't know. And that's still true. I feel like for him, he hasn't completely washed that away, but the Cardinals game was a step in the right direction. And I think he was playing at an MVP level at the end of last year. And you saw a little bit more of that in this game, checking the protection, doing everything he needs to do before the snap, making aggressive decisions and paying them off with unreal arm talent. Didn't have any bad interceptions. He had 1, but the guy slipped. So I do think he has the potential to be an MVP level quarterback, but maybe if it was last year, it was a debate between him and Stroud because of how they both closed the season. This year it's not a debate. It's CJ Stroud. So he has maybe fallen a little bit in the ranks with how the season has started, but I think he can work his way back up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and there was that long touchdown throw, Theo, that I saw you tweet out that people were kind of debating about whether it was a good throw or not. And I think it's a good thing to highlight because the eyes look for the throws that beat coverage, and they're looking for that throw over the top of the defense where the receiver runs under the ball. It's a high skill cap throw that's completed, and that wasn't necessarily one of those, but he kind of won with his mind before he identified the blitz. He threw off his back foot. That's a tough throw. Like, that was an arm strength throw, and the DB's was it Murphy Bunting?
Murphy Bunting, right?
Yeah. So he was his eyes were running with the receiver. He was not looking back at the quarterback. And so putting that in a kind of back shoulder placement and allowing the receiver to adjust to that, that's a good throw in that scenario. And like the throw doesn't have to destroy coverage for it to be a really high caliber throw. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make.
Josh Allen made the exact same throw tonight. He was against a blitz. He drifted backwards into the free rusher, threw a go ball to Keon Coleman. And I think it was Aikman or one of the Mannings. I can't remember. I always turn on Aikman and Buck once the celebrities come on the Manning cast.
Yeah, it gets weird.
It's something.
They're like having the greatest ball conversation with Bill Belichick, and then like
Lil Wayne.
Adam Sandler comes in and starts promoting his new movie. I'm like, this feels like an ad, but whatever. So I can't remember who said it, but on that play, some former quarterback said, I'd like to see Keon Coleman kind of work back to that and high point it like Romeo Dobbs did. Look, against Patrick Surtain, maybe you don't throw that ball, but against Sean Murphy bunting, you do. You know, like he knew he had a matchup advantage and put it somewhere where it was really hard for the corner to make a play on it. And all day he was pretty on the money. He started a little slow, actually, and then LaFleur called a million screens that all worked, and then he like got a rhythm going, and then he started cooking.
Man, there was that one throw where he like came up with his release, like he contorted his body up. I think it was a 4th down throw. It was over the middle, it was like a dig, and he touched it over the top of a linebacker, and it was insane. It was like he just completely like synced his shoulders, like with that kind of like hop that he does with his release, where he was able to manufacture this throwing window or this angle that like wasn't there without it. And like his tape is littered with these like big time throws, high quality throws, too many picks, but it's like he's got good pass pro. It's Zach Tom, Wake Forest 4th rounder years ago. He has been incredible this year. And like Rasheed Walker, Elgton Jenkins, like they're good pass pro blockers. And he gets time back there. He hit a second window dig today, which a second window refers to like in that first window is this is for the viewers, but in between the linebackers that are dropping into coverage, that first window is right after that break. The second window is between those next two hook curl flat zones. And like to hit a second window dig, like you need time back there. We're right there. Like I think it's coming. We're probably going to see that second half turnaround again.
He also has the best pressure to sack ratio in the league. I feel like as inaccurate as he's been and some of the bad decisions that he's made, that's something that he can hang his hat on. They've been super explosive and they have avoided negatives in the sack department. Against Brian Flores and Minnesota, he had 400 yards and they ended up putting up like 29 points or something like that. I think he had the most success against Brian Flores' defense as anybody, and the offensive line blocked it up. Obviously, he made too many mistakes in that game, but I could totally see it going a different way, just like it did last year late in the season. So I'm concerned about the Packers pass rush, like just as much as I am the Lions, maybe not just as much, but they've got all these highly paid guys that just aren't getting home. And as good as some other aspects of the team has been, like, I just feel like there needs to be more like really high end players in the front seven for them to like win the Super Bowl. But I do think that Jordan Love can really get hot here. I like the receiving core still. The secondary with Jair Alexander and X and Evan Williams now, like really showing out. It has some playmakers. So I do think that this is a really intimidating Packers team that hasn't maybe fully gelled yet, and we'll see if they can do it like they did last year.
Now, Jackson, you use this term a lot, throwing with arrogance, and that's how I describe Jordan Love, because that 4th and 1 throw, he layered it over 2 defenders to fit it into that window, and he fit it in perfectly to Christian Watson. And when I watched Jordan Love, his film is littered with these elite high-level throws that showcases just how great his arm strength is. I love that you mentioned, Theo, his pressure to sack ratio, because I think that's one of those elite traits that he has. Yeah, he doesn't take sacks, and I think sometimes taking a sack, that can be viewed as just equally negative as an interception or a fumble, because those are detrimental to drives. And Jordan Love right now, I feel like him and Matt LaFleur is the perfect marriage, because Jordan Love can make things happen when nothing is there. But Matt LaFleur oftentimes makes sure that things are always there for him to take, and he reels him back in. You mentioned the callings of the screens to kind of get him into a rhythm a little bit, and that's one of those quarterback coach combos that I view as one of the elite ones right now, just because those two styles mesh so perfectly. And Jordan Love, just as much as Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud in some ways, has benefited from that play action under center system where you have these completions. Right now on throws over 20 plus yards, Jordan Love is 10th in attempts with 19 in 4 games. And the difference between him and number one is only eight throws, 8 attempts. I mean, Jordan Love is pushing the ball down the field aggressively. So that's why I can live with some of the stupid decisions sometimes, because he's creating so many explosive plays.
Yeah, and quick LaFleur shout out on that long ball TD to Christian Watson. They motioned into a 3-by-1 with an inline tight end, and the defense checked from a cover 3 into quarters with a poaching safety. And they then ran that inline tight end that they had just motioned on this like 10-yard dig that took that poaching safety down. And then Watson hit Budda Baker, who was playing the quarters, the inside quarters over him. He hit him with this little outside move and just took inside leverage deep. It was just this, like, he probably saw earlier in the game that when they motion into that 3-by-1 look with an inline tight end, they're shifting to quarters. So we can just dissect that. And it was a good throw, but it was a great coaching call. And it's a great example of just putting the player in the position to succeed.
Yeah, I think that the new Manning Brady isn't Mahomes or any like quarterback in his conference. I really feel like it's Shanahan and McVay, and then maybe LaFleur is Big Ben. Those three in the AFC. It's specifically LaFleur though, because I feel those 3 in the NFC have been to 75% of the NFC Championship games since 2017. And that's the exact same rate that Brady, Roethlisberger, and Manning were in the AFC Championship games. Like it seems like it's always one of those 3 at the end. And that's the thing about the NFC North. They've just got a bunch of those coaches that you feel like are just as important as quarterbacks these days. You have your Ben Johnsons and Dan Campbell. You have your Brian Flores, and you have your Kevin O'Connell, and you have your Matt LaFleur, who's resuscitated Rodgers' career and brought him to new heights, and is the perfect this coaching tree is capable of incredible things. They're running this era, and the Packers have one of those guys. Like this division has 3 guys who you could kind of consider that, and then there's the Bears, who are a bit of a different formula, but still a good team, still a good team, and we can talk about them next.
The Bears have one of those pieces in Caleb Williams, and I know Jackson's been documenting this every week. Hey, Caleb's getting better. He's getting better, and speak on just the growth over the last 3 weeks from Caleb. He's playing exceptional football.
Yeah, no, he's reeled in that heroics thing, and he's fully leaned into just dissecting the defense. There's been some coaching help too. There was this really cool play. It was the touchdown to Cole Kmet, where they basically schemed a clean pocket for Caleb on that play, where it was like this, there was this orbit motion that was a pump fake, and then they pump faked a screen that was set up by the right tackle rolling out with Swift, and it just completely froze the free rusher, which was Trayvon Walker. And like no one was blocking Trayvon Walker, and he was 3.5, 4 yards from Caleb, but the pump fake had him kind of jump and go out of the way. And Caleb turned and did a full hitch and then threw it up the seam. And it was like, okay, we can't block very well, but we can kind of like run these schematics that are just going to give Caleb an extra full second to hitch and deliver that ball it was like a 30-yard touchdown or something. But I mean, give credit where it's due. They've had a lot of offensive coaching issues, but to see things like that, it does kind of it instills some confidence there, and just the growth that he's shown. It's again, reading the defense, reeling it in, but still reacting when he needs to. He's very reactive now instead of just trying to force things. Like when there's a pressure in his face, he reacts to it, and he still there's that one where he ran like 10 yards backwards, rolled right, dinked it down under to the tight end for like a 15-yard gain. And it was like Mahomes-esque. And like he's playing point guard with exceptional playmaking qualities that come out when needed. And that's kind of how I would wrap that together for Caleb right now.
Yeah, he's totally playing point guard. That's a perfect way to describe it. I feel like he's become such an elite quick game thrower these last couple weeks. And it started in the Colts game, even before this winning streak. He made some mistakes. He threw some interceptions in that game. But the thing I noticed was he hit more quick passes in that game than Fields ever did in Chicago.
Yeah.
More rhythm, timing passes, under 2.4 seconds. Like, he was really good at that in that game. And then these last 3 weeks, we've seen that. How many times did he hit Keenan Allen on third down on a slant? And he's reading the defense and he knows where he wants to go before the snap even happens. And he gets the snap and he's looking directly at the slant that's about to be open. And he's like, his feet are bouncing, his like hands are shaking. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to throw it. And then it breaks open and it's right there for him. And he's been just doing that over and over and over again, getting to the right spot. He's been it's something he kind of struggled with week 1, like running the snag concepts, like running some of these easy quick game things. I thought he kind of struggled to find the window sometimes. That has not been the case at all these past few weeks. He is keeping everything in rhythm on time. He's been super accurate. The thing I'd like to see more of, it's like the opposite of what he was at USC. I'd like to see more of the magic and the aggressiveness downfield. And like, he's hit some plays, but maybe not quite as many as you'd expect given his tape at USC. I think that's the next step for him because he's played 3 really bad defenses, to be fair. He's been running the quick game at a really high level. Like, when is he going to have a coming out party where it's that plus just some of these crazy throws against a good team? Because we haven't quite seen a full breakout yet, I'd say, but it's getting better.
For my fantasy team, I sure hope so. And I hope that those targets start going to DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Because that's somebody, man, when he missed that touchdown to DJ Moore and it got intercepted, I was like, of course it did. And then DJ Moore got stopped at the 1 yard line. I'm like, my goodness. I think Bears fans can be very excited about Caleb because he's going to be a great quarterback. There's no doubt about it. But on the opposite end, is he going to be so great that it transcends the coaching issues that they have? DJ Moore coming out and basically verifying that, Shane Waldron wasn't scripting our first 15 plays at the beginning of the season. And then Matt Eberflus as head coach, I don't think any of us are really that bought into him. So I think that's the good and the bad with this current regime with the quarterback that they have right now.
Yeah, I think it was funny that everybody commended Shane Waldron for his play calling in this game after it was terrible in all the other games. It's like, this is what happens when your offensive line, like, it doesn't look like the worst. It's a little bit more time and everything runs smoother. I still thought there were some spacing issues down the field in this game. Like, Eberflus on primetime a few weeks ago just made some of the dumbest challenges. I definitely don't think that this Bears roster is quite at the level of the other NFC ones right now with how bad like the interior line is and the disadvantage at coaching staff that they have. But I'm interested to see how good they are going forward and what their ceiling is with this current core, because they're on the right track, but I still have questions about that.
Yeah, agreed. They could do something. They're fun. They're going to have some wins over some good teams, but is it going to be enough to be competitive in December in the NFC North? That's the question, I think.
Yeah, can the defense get to that? Like, they have the defense, too, to do it. It's like, oh, man, Caleb is pretty good, and the defense is pretty good, but there are just some things where I'm like, I've seen it before from the Lions. I've seen it before from the Packers, the Vikings.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Man, that seam ball to Keenan for that touchdown.
It's nice.
With that placement, with the rip on it, my God, that was an insane throw.
That fade, too, to Keenan off press where there was a guy jumping with both hands up, and he floated it right over him and led Keenan Allen. It was nice.
Yep.
All 4 teams in the NFC North have 4 wins. And do you think that all 4 of these teams are going to make the playoffs?
Oh, man. Who's in the playoff picture right now? Who is missing from it? I'm trying to think. I think the Seahawks can still maybe.
I have some faith still. The offensive line is so bad, though.
There's the Buccaneers. That's probably a better pick than the Seahawks at this point. Liam Cohen is doing a really good job. They've got some great
cover. That's my issue with them. Like they can't cover, and if you can't cover, I mean, you need a really good offense. And they've had some great offensive performances, but I'm skeptical on the consistency there.
The Saints missed like 15 tackles in that game.
Yeah.
They've they've got so many playmakers. Like in the last Buccaneers game, Baker was 1 for 10 beyond 10 yards for 2 picks, and they put up 51 points. Like, I couldn't believe it. They've just got so many shifty guys to dump the ball off to, and Liam Cohen is doing a good job, like getting them good looks with motion and all kinds of different run schemes. It's not just zone anymore. So I like them for that. I like McCollum, their corner, is a ball hawk this year. They've got Winfield Jr., but like Britt in coverage is a major problem. Number 52, you can just kind of consistently go back to him.
Yeah.
Dean, you can kind of consistently go back to, or at least they did a few weeks ago, and then he got hurt. And then the backup number 24 last week, he was really rough. So there are some guys who you can definitely go after. And like Vita Vea will be in coverage for them sometimes, like find the defensive end.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for all 4 of these teams to make the playoffs, but I definitely think 3 of them will. They're that talented, and it'll probably be the Packers, Vikings, and Lions if I were to guess right now and just make a bet on it. We spoke about Jordan Love earlier, and this is something that we do on the Pick a Side podcast, which is another podcast I do. Shout out to them. This is a Would You Rather, and I'm jacking the style of that podcast, but this is with Jordan Love. So this is just a Would You Rather Jordan Love edition. I'm going to name a quarterback, and you tell me if you'd rather this quarterback or Jordan Love. C.J. Stroud.
Stroud. This is like based on this year, right? Like,
yes, this year kind of projection. Just, who do you like as a quarterback? I think Stroud is playing exceptional. I'm going to go with Stroud too. Although coming into the season, I thought it was closer than it was, but Jordan Love just is more prone to mistakes. Brock Purdy.
I'd rather have Jordan Love.
Love as well. Yeah, I Purdy's good, but there's some limitations there.
I'd rather have Jordan Love as well. And Brock Purdy is such a divisive topic, and that's why I don't like speaking on it much, honestly. Anything that you even say that is remotely like not good from him, it's like, oh, look at you. It was exactly where he wanted to throw it. He's perfect. Everybody else is at fault. So I don't like to get into that.
He's really good. I'm just like, I try to put these guys we're comparing in that Niners Shanahan offense as well, and say, who do I think would play better here, Purdy or Love in a Shanahan offense? And there's just more access to more of the field. There's more throws you can do. There's a lot more reads you can make with Jordan Love. So that's why I'd go Love.
Yeah, I think that Purdy, the red zone problems this year are a lot on him. I think he almost reminds me of Caleb Williams at USC. Like, he's running around at such a rate and like turning his back to the defense and like going 20 yards behind the line at such a rate. Like, he is still connecting on a lot of these throws. Like, he is a good player, but I think that he's just a little limited as an athlete to consistently threaten outside the numbers. And I think without McCaffrey, people are kind of crowding the middle of the field. And there's just some hesitation with him and relying on athleticism. And I think Love is the better athlete if we're going athlete for athlete, and they both can maybe be prone to that. But like, I'd rather have Love running around back there. I really would.
Next name is Jalen Hurts.
Jordan Love.
Jordan Love as well.
Yeah, I'm going with J Love. Trevor Lawrence.
Jordan Love.
Yeah,
it's hard to defend Trevor right now. Even though last game wasn't his fault, even though everybody wanted to defend it on him.
4 drop touchdowns or 5? Yeah, it's been rough, and it did. The last few weeks kind of were on him, and we were talking on this podcast about how this was the wrong time for him to start playing bad, because there was kind of this narrative that he was worse than he's actually been, and then right when it hit that peak of everyone screaming about it, he had like 2 of his worst games in the last 2 years. And then we go back to how it was like late last year and the start of this year, where he's playing well-ish with some mistakes, but not as bad as it looks. And yeah, that's what this game was. He was pretty good.
Yeah, I think his touch and his accuracy is the biggest issue with him, and maybe Love can even do a little bit more from a manipulation standpoint, like moving people with their eyes, but the pocket presence and the arm talent of Lawrence and some of the things he's capable of, I still really like about him. But I would take Love. He hasn't quite struggled as much as there are some things that are hard to defend with Lawrence these days. Yeah. But I wish he was in a LaFleur system instead of whoever is calling plays in Jacksonville. I don't even know at this point.
Zach Taylor's
Yeah.
brother. She's calling plays.
Oh, is it a mysterious third guy?
Press Taylor. That
Oh,
play.
I didn't know that. I didn't know Press Taylor was Zach Taylor's brother. I should have guessed.
The last name I'll mention is Kyler Murray.
Love.
Ooh, love, but it's really close, I think.
I'm going with Jordan Love too. I think Kyler, his limitations have really shown this year. The numbers don't look bad, I should say, for him. But when you watch him, he's kind of missing a lot of stuff. And I also kind of blame Drew Petzing a little bit. I don't know if you guys have felt the same way, but I think the Cardinals can get very run happy and not rely on the pass game as much as they should with Kyler.
I thought it happened in the Bills game. I can't quite remember these last few weeks. Certainly not in the Packers game because they got behind so much. I just think Kyler is smart, and I think that giving him more control over the offense is going to get smoother. He's broken off so many long runs this year that other guys just don't have the home run speed for. Like I do think higher of Kyler Murray, but just from the pocket sometimes it just kind of same with Purdy. Like there just are some limitations there that Jordan Love doesn't have as one of the biggest freaks in the league.
The height is an issue. We were talking recently how we didn't really have the data on those 5'8" quarterbacks going back 10 years. And now we've got Kyler and Bryce Young too, who have both shown issues throwing from the pocket that heavily revolve around that height. And like, I think there's going to be some more scrutinization on the height factor because of how those two have worked out. Russell Wilson, couple inches bit taller, a lot stronger. And the Kyler's really good, but I think there's like a barrier, there's a glass ceiling up there because of that height.
Now, this season has been the year where quarterbacks have resurrected their careers. We have Sam Darnold, we have Justin Fields, who is playing some good football for the Steelers, all things considered. And Geno Smith has been doing this for some years now, so that's why I didn't group into these like breakout quarterbacks. Malik Willis also for like 2 games looked really good. Who is your next pick to be the quarterback that resurrects their career? I'll start with you, Theo.
Oh, who could it be? I guess my first thought when you say this is just like Justin Fields, but it's kind of in the process of happening right now that he's moved on to his second team and hasn't like fully had a Geno Smith type season, but he is playing, I think, the best football of his career. I don't know though. Let me think for a second. Someone else answer this question to begin, and I can think of something in a couple of minutes here.
So I think the next guy who might get a chance and who has some good arm talent is Drew Lock. He obviously had a lot of issues. I don't know how much longer Daniel Jones has. He did play better for a few games, and he hasn't been terrible. There were some issues on 4th down and just some issues in general reading the defense that have followed him throughout his whole career. I think the jig is up on him. I think they should be done, but they need to play it out to see if he corrects a bit to justify that contract so they don't look like idiots. But I don't think that they can justify this all season if he doesn't play like he has in the best game or two of the season this year. And so I think Drew Lock's going to come in. I'm not super confident in Drew Lock, but there's certainly a chance there that he's grown in a similar way to Sam Darnold, sitting, learning. And I mean, he's got the arm for Brian Daboll's offense and much more of an arm than Daniel Jones has. So maybe that connection with Malik Neighbors can get working downfield.
I've got a cursed one.
Yeah.
How about Deshaun Watson?
Oh man. That is evil.
A few years on the bench, leaving Cleveland, comes back like playing for, I don't know, in like 2030 and then plays better.
You know, I have a little bit of a hot take with the Browns and Deshaun Watson. I think we all know that he's not good, right? I watched the Eagles and Browns film right before we got on this podcast. I was watching it during Monday Night Football. And as much as Deshaun Watson doesn't help his case, I don't feel like the offensive design is that good for the Browns either. And whenever the Browns seem to get things rolling, holding, false start. Like all these things happen within the Browns operation. Like when they were trying to tie the game against the Eagles, it was 13-20. They were in the red zone. It was they were within 3 yards of scoring a touchdown. They get a false start. And then they get another false start. Now they're like 13 yards back and they have to settle for a field goal. And I'm like, okay, some of these things just aren't on Deshaun. Like there's just a lot of things operationally that are wrong with the Browns. And I don't think everything is totally on Deshaun.
It's not everything, but I mean, he is playing like one of the worst starters. But I don't like the way the team is even constructed right now. Like the wide receiving core just didn't like it coming into it, trading for him, paying Jerry Jeudy. Like, what did he do to deserve that as wide receiver 2 in Denver? Like, all he did was disappoint, and then they're like, let's have that guy as our number 2 option. Like, what did you do? Right. He's going to get paid and disappoint. And Amari Cooper hasn't been, like, he's legitimately been selling this year.
Yeah.
Elijah Moore, the former Jet, like that trade didn't really work out. Like, where is the young talent developing? So I don't know who's going to like go from being terrible to being good, but just because we've seen it from Watson before, and like, once he gets benched, he's probably going to spend quite a while on the bench, and maybe he could learn a thing or two, like just sitting for longer than just practicing. Another name, Mac Jones, maybe.
I'm a proud Mac Jones stockholder. I'm still listen. He got fucked over in New England, man. It's just is what it is.
Yep. Kenny Pickett, another one.
I don't know about that one.
I mean, Tanner McKee is the third stringer. I think he's better than Kenny Pickett.
He was in the preseason by a lot.
Zach Wilson.
With Pickett and Zach Wilson, it's like, at least with Mac and Deshaun Watson, it's like, I know that there's something in there, whether it be Mac playing at like a pretty good level as rookie or Deshaun playing like an MVP in 2020. With Pickett and Wilson, I guess with Darnold, he was never really good when he was on the Jets. So,
and Mac dealt with that whole like just offense falling apart, losing the skill positions, having nothing to work with. And it was the same thing that got Tom Brady run out of town, where people thought Brady was washed. And go ahead.
Someone I'm still holding stock in. How about Trey Lance? A couple years in the XFL, get some experience, win some MVPs, rushing for 1,000 yards, looking like Josh Allen. Come back to the NFL with some throws under his belt. I really want him to go to the UFL or something, and
that'd be fun,
and see him start all year there and see if he could make a comeback after that. But that's really reaching. I'm saying to go to the minors.
Yeah.
He needs to get to, if he was a baseball player, he'd get sent to the minors and they'd see if he could work a way out of it. That just doesn't exist in football. He has no experience. He never plays. Like, they totally need to send him to some like minor league where he
that's got to be
throws in.
That's got to be the future of the UFL. Like, they've got to become up that pipeline.
That's why I didn't hate the 5 interceptions in preseason. I'm like, get all the reps out now. I mean, this is what it's for. How about, is there any stock that we're holding on to with Sam Howell or no?
I didn't love him as a prospect coming out, and he just took so many sacks. But like, who knows with some of these players? Like, he's got the physical tools.
Yeah.
Like, he's got some good things to him, but I just was never a fan of him coming out of UNC, and I'm kind of biased towards guys I liked a little bit more at some point.
There was that trend on X of it was like highlights can make any player look good, and then they would post highlights of like some terrible players. But I think Sam Howell is like the poster child of that. If you made like a 4-minute Sam Howell highlight tape, like, you would think this dude is like a top 5 quarterback. Like, the big time throws popped, but yeah, the sacks and the turnover worthy plays were just too much to work with.
Yeah, maybe that's the type of player you should bet on for something like this. I mean, more than like a game manager or someone with not so spectacular tools, but a better mind. Like, maybe it is the Howells and the Lances and the Locks that just could benefit from being 30 instead of 24, you know?
He's kind of like a Jameis Light, like who's 30 now, I believe, but we're still waiting on Jameis come back.
It's true.
That's actually a good one for this. Yeah.
Carson Wentz.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Settled into things.
Yeah.
You know,
who knows?
Sometimes I think about an alternate NFL universe where the 49ers didn't succumb to the peer pressure of not drafting Mac Jones, And I think he'd still be the 49ers starting quarterback if he was there. That's just something, it's a gut feeling. If Mac Jones is on the Niners, he's thriving right now.
How good would we think he is? That's a funny, wow.
Top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
Top 5 quarterback, Mac Jones.
Now, ranking these rookie quarterbacks that just got drafted, it's kind of hard to try to re-rank them because we're so fresh into their careers in the NFL. I don't know about you guys, but when I ranked this, I ranked it exactly how the draft order went.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, one difference.
What's the difference?
Yeah. So I've got Rattler ahead of Bo Nix. It's a trigger for a lot of people. But my thought is, if I'm drafting Bo Nix is the better bet to be a mid-level starting quarterback, mid to low-level starting quarterback. But if I'm drafting someone, especially at that pick, I want the guy with the live arm, with arm talent, not just a big arm, but arm talent. Like that ball pops, it's live. He had some rollouts where it came out so fast, and like he can be a top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying he will; it's a risk. But I also viewed his college tape as inconclusive. There were games where he had like 20-something% drop rate and like 60% pressure rates. Like he could not succeed in it. There was the Clemson game being the worst of the bunch. But like, I didn't believe that we could take away that he was bad from his tape. And so I was looking at a guy who had a lot of talent, and we can't give him credit for having good tape when he doesn't have that. But at the same time, he didn't have bad tape, in my opinion. And so I'd rather have the guy that can be a top 10 quarterback semi-realistically than the guy who is going to be a guy that you're like feeling weird about paying, because when you pay him, you're locked into him and you can't build a team that he can carry. So,
yeah, Bo Nix, I don't know the whole way, but at least for the first rounders, I think ranking them in the same order is what I would do as well. I just don't think that Caleb has been bad enough to get knocked down, and Jaden has been so good. But like these last 3 weeks, Caleb's kind of having the same arc, I feel like playing some light pass rushes, certainly not the hardest group, but starting to lock in, starting to look super accurate, starting to make plays. Like, I think it's very inconclusive between him and Jaden Daniels at this point. So I'm going to go by my pre-draft thing. I do think that Jaden looks like, I still believe in Drake Maye, but Jaden has looked like so good over these first 2 weeks where it's like, I'm not going to say the Commanders made the wrong choice or anything like that. So, yeah. And then who is after that? Penix before McCarthy before Nix. Like it's tough to change anything in that stretch.
Oh, yeah. I would probably put just JJ over Penix. That's the only thing I'd change.
Ooh, yeah. I actually forgot to put Penix on this list.
I mean, we haven't. They played him in one preseason game and said we've seen enough. I still don't know what that was about. Same thing with JJ. We've seen both of those guys in one preseason game. So you guys can I like Penix more than JJ as a prospect, but I thought they both had good preseason debuts. So
after seeing JJ's arm at the NFL level, I'd take him over Penix. I did have him ranked ahead of Penix as well, but I think that it was only preseason, but we saw like the tools that people were debating throughout the draft. I was like, no, this guy has a freaking arm. You just have to dig through the tape to find it. But there's some far hash dots, like lasers, and you don't see that like in open air arenas. And I think that we saw enough to say that JJ's for real. He's got Kevin O'Connell. He's in an offense that we believe in for development, and that plays a factor here. I guess if we're talking about redrafting, that could be a murky topic, but at least how I was looking at it, I do think that he showed all of the elite physical traits that a lot of people doubted.
Yeah, I can be talked into that, like JJ or Penix. Again, I didn't really care after the first time. It's like not JJ, Caleb and Maye are the two franchise guys here, and then the rest I could kind of take or leave. And obviously, Jaden has proved me wrong there. The rest of them, I don't know, but I know, but Bo Nix is not that guy. That was something I felt strongly about at Oregon. and just at the NFL, I think his tape has been especially rough. He's had some performances because of the defense, because of special teams. He's been able to target outside the numbers pretty exclusively and like hit some goes and some comebacks and do enough in that area of the field to win them the game. But I just feel like reading the middle of the field is just a complete, it's completely lost on him from everything that I've seen. So
yeah, I don't want to have to worry about paying a guy like that. Like I would not pay. I'm not like I wouldn't pay Dak what he got. Like he's a good quarterback, but I don't think he's worth like capping that roster out, which we're gonna get into I think in a minute. The Cowboys and Eagles here, but he's good. He's a top 12-ish quarterback, but he's not top 10. I think he's like that 10 to 12 range, and too many turnover worthy plays. He can't access the whole field. Once he starts rolling, too much of the field is limited. I don't think he's a ceiling raiser. I think he's a floor raiser.
I think the great thing about these quarterbacks, or just more so Jaden and Caleb, is that things that many people looked at and said they were weaknesses, they have been strengths. Like Jaden Daniels, under pressure, I thought that was a real concern coming out of college. 107.5 passer rating this year under pressure, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 61.1% completion percentage, and he's first in EPA per drop back when he's pressured. So that has very much been a strength, and he's throwing to the middle of the field, which is also something we didn't see in his college tape. And his game against the Ravens was by far his best performance. The confidence he had throwing the ball into the open gaps in the zones, the off-platform throws, throwing on the move. I love the second touchdown he had to Terry McLaurin where they kind of ad-libbed it. McLaurin said, if the corner is playing inside leverage, then it's going to be a fade. And Jaden Daniels put that ball where only Terry McLaurin can get it. So Jaden, I thought that was his best performance against the Ravens. And then with Caleb, it was, can you operate a quick game offense and not just run around all the time? And even then, I thought that was an overblown narrative because he was good in quick game in college, but in throws under 2.5 seconds, 105.6 pass rating, 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, and an 80.6% completion percentage. He's been one of the best quick game quarterbacks in the NFL, and these are knocks on these quarterbacks that have been strengths thus far.
They've showed that they can translate the accuracy of Jaden Daniels. I feel like under pressure, he's just kind of mastered the fadeaway. I still think he could maybe do a little bit more stepping up in the pocket and maneuvering, but I think he's gotten better and better at that. He had a great play in the last game where he drifted away from Roquan Smith on a blitz and like reset in the pocket and threw to the other side of the field. Like he definitely wasn't doing that and keeping his eyes downfield in the first game. And so I feel like his just kind of fade and sidearm flick, being on the money all the time and getting better and better maneuvering the pocket. Like, yeah, he's been money. I guess if I were to have any concern about Daniels, it is like how much he is scrambling. I would say he's scrambling at the highest rate in the league. He did take some big time hits against the Ravens that you kind of worried about. He hasn't been like Lamar Jackson-esque in the designed running game at all. Like he's not that kind of downhill, like Josh Allen bruiser as he is like twitchy, making people miss. So, but yeah, it's pretty nitpicky, right? Like there's just some certain runs that he's not as good at like Josh Allen at. But yeah, it's pretty tough to poke holes in his game. But at this point, I'm still going with the pre-draft rankings that I had. Too much unknown.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we're getting to see Drake Maye.
Yeah. No, that one throw, my God, where he's got the flat defender in the cover 2 and he pump fakes him down to work down and open. It manufactures this whole throw-in window again that's there. And like it was manipulation. It's shit from veterans that you see, that rookie first start. You should not be seeing that, especially in the Patriots offense with like these. Like it's a joke. Like they can't block. No one can get separation. You got the head coach going on these tirades all the time about the players and flipping the running backs to thinking that's going to fix the problem. And the
spacing of the offense is not it.
Yeah. It was super basic, super vanilla. It's God. But what he did despite that was just so cool. That the deep ball, the one I just mentioned, the outcut. But like, yeah, no, he looks awesome. And for me, I'm actually like, I still want to put him over Jaden. Like, Jaden has certainly improved his stock a lot, but I don't know if he's like surpassed what I thought Drake Maye would be. And Drake Maye in one game has done more. I know I could
No,
go either.
speaking my language though, like
Yeah.
I love Drake Maye.
Yeah.
I was low on Daniels. You are
Provocative. Yeah.
you are tempting me because yeah, man, the Patriots, he had the best debut of anybody. Like Jaden's debut wasn't as good as Maye's debut. Caleb's debut certainly wasn't. Bo Nix's debut certainly wasn't. Like he did. Like if we're starting that as game one on the Patriots offense, like against the Texans, he showed as much good stuff as anybody did in their first good game. So I can definitely be talked into ranking to just keeping it the exact same as my pre-draft rankings, which was Caleb, Maye, Daniels, I think Penix, McCarthy, or something. Yeah, I think it's
and he looks like a giant. Like, I don't know if you guys like noticed that, but like watching out, like, my God, he looked 6'7". Like, I know he's not, but he looks so big, and he can scoot too.
Yeah, did you see the run he had? Josh Allen had a play today where he slid through a blocker and a defensive player. He like ducked under it. Drake Maye scrambled and he went straight downhill, and there was a guy like engaged with a block, and Drake Maye just like ran right between the arms of both of them. And like the defender was like, I did not expect the quarterback to just like run straight through my face. And I love that about Drake Maye, the type of runner he is, how north and south and he is. Like he works off of his blockers, like the vision that he has. The offense instantly got more explosive, but he did miss some throws is the thing. Yeah. Like he really did miss some easy ones. The pick was bad. Like Jaden has just been so accurate and so efficient that it's like I can't rank Maye above him and say the Commanders like should have taken Maye at this point. But I do kind of believe that deep down. Like I think you make a good point. Like, is Jaden better right now than I expect Drake Maye to be? Like, I don't know if he's reached that point, but that's more based on what's in my head than the reality on the field.
And Jaden was the pro-ready quarterback. I do think Drake Maye was like low-key pro-ready too.
Oh,
like, he got all this weird, like, oh, he's so raw. He needs... No, he's ready. Like, he did not... And he showed that. But... Yeah. But, like, we should have expected Jaden to come... Not like this. Like, this is a thunderstorm on what our expectations would have been. But, like, it's still... Like, I think that was into it.
Yeah, Drake Maye just turned, 22, and Jaden is one of the older quarterback prospects to come out. So, yeah, definitely some... It's not over yet. Maye heads.
Yeah.
As a Jets fan, it's a weird feeling liking quarterbacks that are in my division, like Josh Allen and Drake Maye, because I like Drake Maye a lot. This is going to sound like glazing, and it's because it is. The 2 interceptions he threw, he might as well have thrown 0. Because
the first one is bad.
The first one was inaccurate, but I was like, okay, that's the right decision.
We know he's going to do that.
I could be talked into saying, okay, that can be worked on. And then the second was just, tipped at the line for a screen. I was like, were these like bad throws? Like, oh my God, you're so dumb for throwing that. No, I was like, okay, they're reasonable. And first start, 3 touchdowns against the Texans. Like you mentioned, the offense instantly got more explosive, and he used his legs to scramble for a couple first downs. I just feel like Drake Maye is the real deal. I really do. And he's about to put up a masterclass on the Jaguars, and that's already the pick I'm going with coming into next week. Like, if the Patriots are underdogs, which I'm kind of assuming they will be, I'm going to definitely take them as the underdog.
If you're going to take them, then you need to parlay that with Peterson getting fired, because those two go hand in hand, and that's free money right there.
The Jaguars are not only favorites, they're 5.5 point favorites. They're big favorites.
It seems like Vegas is wrong on that, because the Patriots defense, unless Tank Bigsby has like a great day rushing the ball, which can happen, because their run defense has been very bad. But I think that the Patriots could go in there and win that game. I mean, the Jaguars play so much man coverage, and against a strong arm quarterback like Drake Maye, and at least some juice at receiver with Pop Douglas and how he's looking. Yeah. I can see that upset happening.
And Maye's legs, if you're going to be playing man, we just, like, they can't contain scrambles. So I could definitely see the vision here, but it'll be a historic mid-off in London, certainly. Like, I feel the same way about the the Patriots defense missing Barmore just it could give Lawrence all day, and then Gonzalez is good, but there are guys to be picked on. So I think it's a bit of a toss up, but 5.5 point favorites. I think I'd take the Patriots spread at the very least there.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Davante Adams, we don't know if he's going to get traded or not, but if he does get traded, what's the team that you want to see him go to? I'm not going to be biased and say the Jets. That's not what I'm going to do, even though I think he will go to the Jets. I'm very hopeful that it will happen. My pick was the Chargers. I think a in-division trade is very unlikely, but if the Chargers can get one receiving weapon out there for Justin Herbert, I think it kind of changes what this team can be.
Changes everything. Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, it would be amazing. It would be amazing to have a guy like Davante Adams. I think the Chargers are the bones of a really good team are there for them. I think Justin Herbert is playing at a really high level this year, as he is every single year. The stats continue to not quite show it because they've had problems with their line with all the injuries and problems at receiver. They're so unexplosive this year. Everybody wanted them to draft Neighbors, and it certainly would have helped because they're not hitting the big plays down the field. Like I think that Justin Herbert is certainly capable of hitting. And then Davante Adams would just provide a little bit of that. And I think him and Herbert could get on the same page, like him and Keenan Allen. Like I think that would be a wonderful connection. And the Chargers are 3-2. They look like the second best team in their conference. The AFC not super strong, like I mentioned. Like I think they could do some damage. Bosa and Mac look good when they're healthy, at least.
If the question is who sees the biggest boost after the trade, then it's definitely the Chargers. I always go back to this play from, I think it was week 4, or this set of plays where it's they're back-to-back passes where Quentin Johnston deep can't get off press and just completely loses at the catch point because he can't win at the catch point. And then the very next play, it's 3rd and 4. It's a quick slant to Quentin Johnston, who once again gets absolutely destroyed by press. And the play's dead. And that's the type of, like, it just disrupts the timing. You can't trust him to do anything. You can't. Lad McConkey's the only guy that can get somewhat consistent separation. They were throwing like contested ball after contested ball to like Fuhaku or something like that.
I mean,
yeah, I mean, come on, like we need something here. And I get that they want to run the ball, but like you've got Justin Herbert. Like you got to maximize that. And I just hate when these teams don't maximize their quarterbacks. You need weapons. That is where we're at today. Like your quarterback needs weapons or there's going to be struggles. And you need separation generators. And yeah, I mean, they'd be scary with Davante.
Yeah, someone on the backside of a 3x1 who's actually an X. Like Lad McConkey, I don't think is actually an X, but on the front side of a 3x1 or in the trip somewhere, like kind of manufacturing him 3 free releases. And, you know, him and Quentin Johnston both just kind of getting lost in the bodies on the strong side. Like, I think that would be a better fit for them than trying to win one-on-ones. Like that's Adams. So I think that he would just make everybody better. I think the Ravens are a good spot for him for that reason. I think when they lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs last year, they ignored that X receiver in the 3x1 a lot of the times. Like, I feel like it would help them so much to have yet another force multiplier to balance the field in situations like that. Henry in the backfield, say Flowers in, out of a stack or a bunch or a trips or something like that. And then Adams on the backside winning one-on-ones. I think they'd be so, with Lamar as a threat to run it. Like Bateman I still believe in Bateman a little bit. He's coming off a good game. I think they can be a good team without him. But when he posted Edgar Allan Poe on his story, I just got really excited. I was like, oh, it's all coming together. Yeah. Just like I thought. And then nothing happened. So I don't know if anything will. How about this, though, Kieran? How about trading Aaron Rodgers to the Raiders?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I can't do it. That'd be nuts. I think it's a better chance that we get Davante Adams and Max Crosby. I'll send you 3 firsts.
No,
I really would do it in a heartbeat, though. This just came into my mind, this comparison that I think it makes a lot of sense. The Chargers drafting Joe Alt and passing on Malik Neighbors is like if the Bengals didn't draft Jamar Chase and they drafted Penei
Sewell. Yeah.
That's how it is. And the difference is that the Bengals at least had T. Higgins at the time, and the Chargers don't have anybody remotely close to that. So that's kind of where we're at with the Chargers.
And the Chargers did have that left tackle in Rashawn Slater already. I mean, yeah, the right side matters too, but I think they really whiffed on that, even though I think Joe Alt is going to be an all-pro caliber player.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still hopeful that the alt thing can age well. I feel like I think about the Eagles all the time and the fact that they won a Super Bowl with Foles and then got there again with Hurts, and like what was the same? All the weapons that were different. The quarterback was different. The coaches were different. The running back was different. But the offensive line, it was still Lane Johnson. It was still Kelsey. It was still a couple other Pro Bowl players. Like if you can really build that unit up, like you really can build around it. And Herbert with time is a scary proposition. And so many good wide receivers have entered the league. Like Brian Thomas Jr. just went at number 20 in this year's draft. Like, could the Chargers get a guy like that at number 20 in next year's draft, as opposed to the tackles that go in the end of the first round or the second round? So I think they can recover from that draft pick, although Neighbors does look like super awesome and they could really, really use him right now. So we'll see. But I still, I think if they see out the offensive line rebuild, it still could end up being worth it for them if they can find one of these other receivers late in the draft, like some other teams have been able to.
Now, speaking on the Eagles, the talent on the team is still there, but it feels like the structure, the coaching at the top is just not there right now. Between the Eagles and the Cowboys, because the Commanders are exceeding expectations right now, and these are the two teams that we thought one of them would at least win the division. Who do you think is in more of a panic mode? And I'll start with you, Theo.
The Cowboys, by about 1,000,000 degrees. The seat is hot. I mean, the Eagles had A.J. Brown hurt. They had Devontae Smith hurt. They struggled against the Buccaneers. Their defense hasn't been fantastic, certainly, but like they've got way less issues than the Cowboys have. At least the Cowboys have two weapons. At least the Eagles have a running game they can lean on. At least the Eagles have like a better defense than the Cowboys do. They haven't lost 47-6 at any point this year, although the Bucs did kind of crush them. Like the Cowboys are in real tough shape. The Eagles certainly aren't. I'm feeling okay about my like 9-7 projection with them, where it was like they're not going to fully bounce back to 2022 levels with the new coaching, but they're still like pretty good. I think that's where I'm at with them. Like they can be a playoff team. I'm expecting them to be fine. The Cowboys, I would be pulling every alarm in the building.
Yeah, I'm right there with you right now and going forward. I think that both the quarterbacks have been struggling. We're looking at the number 1 in Dak Prescott, leader in turnover-worthy plays to date, and the number 2 in one less game being Jalen Hurts. Yeah, they were on their bye last week. But there's just a lot more support for Jalen Hurts. He has been underperforming even worse than last year, which was seen as a step back from the previous year. I think that, but when you look at just support again, the two receivers, the good offensive line, a defense that is still learning a Fangio scheme, that is a complex defense to learn. And we saw like in week 1 or 2, is that deep, when they played the Packers, that deep, I think it was week 1, the Jaden Reed touchdown where they were like in a cover 3 and they were all confused about the deep middle didn't pick it up. The other deep outside third didn't get depth. There was just a world of problems. And we've seen a lot of those. Cooper DeJean played well in his first start last week. Quinion Mitchell has been really good. They've got a lot of defensive young talent. And I think that this is something where like, I feel semi-confident in that defense looking a lot better second half of the year than first half of the year. I also feel a lot better about Jalen Hurts looking a lot better in the second half of the year than the first half of the year. Whereas with Dak, like the offensive line is bad. We're talking about Rico Dowdle needing more touches. Like that should never be a topic. It's CeeDee Lamb or bust. The defense, Mike Zimmer looks like he took a year off and did not elevate his defense at all. This is the exact same defense, but albeit with injuries and less talent now. We're seeing it get cooked every other week. And I don't have faith in that bouncing back. Like I at least have some faith in Fangio getting things together on that end. So, I mean, yeah, like right now and going forward, it's Eagles all the way.
Yeah, the Eagles have their share of problems, certainly, but you're right about Jalen Hurts. I think that he can cut down on the turnover-worthy plays with his wide receivers back. Their defense, yeah, it's got some hope. I'm worried about the edge rushers here, like the Huff
Yeah.
signing and Sweat not looking great, and like Nolan Smith. That all could kind of sink them in the end, but at least some of their interior guys can get pressure, and at least some of their secondary guys. We'll see if Bland coming back can help. And I know the Cowboys are hurt too, but really with the Eagles, it comes down to the offense and all the weapons they've got. Whereas the Cowboys just got one guy, two guys, I guess.
Yeah.
I think there's without a doubt that the Cowboys are a much worse team and they have much more holes than the Eagles. In the same breath, though, when I think about like the panic mode for each team, I kind of go back to what's the idea of success for the season. For the Cowboys, I had them winning the division, but I thought they were a great regular season team that we all know was going to crumble in the playoffs. And we knew that they lost a lot of talent. They didn't make any offseason additions. So I look at the Cowboys and I'm kind of looking at them and saying, you're kind of not that far off from where I think people projected you to be. There were many people that projected them to miss the playoffs, to barely get into the playoffs, where the Eagles, I was getting talked into, well, not I was getting talked into, but people were talking to me about a Devin White resurgence and how he's a great linebacker pickup for the Eagles. So I look at the Eagles and their expectations is to get back to 2022 form.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the defense has made those strides just yet, even though they're talented, but the edge rushers are a very big problem. And the offense, I think there is a pathway for them to be an elite unit, but right now things just kind of don't feel all the way there just yet. So I think the Eagles, they have much more room to get better because the Cowboys, this is what they are. This is their personnel. But in terms of panicking on the Eagles and saying maybe this isn't a true contender, this is more so a wild card team than it is a team that's closer to getting a bye week in the playoffs, I think that's where I'd be panicking on them more because it's just an inconsistent team. Like week to week, you don't know what you're getting out of them.
Yeah, and Sirianni too, like his behavior this week was weird. It was bizarre.
Weird.
It's always been weird. There's the story that comes out like him and Hurts can't really have like one-on-one meetings because they're so frustrated with each other. Constant clock issues so far this year. Like, yeah, the Eagles, I think it's a good point. Like the Eagles have much higher expectations than the Cowboys. Like no one believed in the Cowboys this year. So maybe just at the state that they're at, like the Eagles could underwhelm more, but the Cowboys they still had expectations, you know,
Yeah.
like they lost 47-8 or whatever it was, 47-9.
No,
They
the
always
Cowboys
do.
really suck right now. Benjamin Solak tweeted this, that they're giving up 0.17 EPA per rush on designed runs dating back to 2006. It's the single worst EPA per play on designed rushes dating back to that time. They just are terrible defensively, and it doesn't matter if they have Micah. It doesn't fix anything. Like even a star of that caliber, it doesn't fix anything for this team, and they're in a hole. You know, they have to figure out what they're going to do at head coach to end the year and stuff like that, because I think if they miss the playoffs, Mike McCarthy is all but gone.
I'd be feeling pretty good if I was a Commanders fan, is all I'll say. Like, I don't know if Jaden will sustain quite this pace, but I keep saying that and he keeps doing it, and these other teams look completely dysfunctional. So yeah, their defense is ass, and their Cliff Kingsbury is known to hit a wall, but I'd still be feeling pretty good about it if I was them.
And maybe that Thailand trip changed him.
Maybe it did.
He's looked different. He's looked different. Like I think his scheme looks a lot more like NFL skewed. Like it's collegey NFL skewed towards NFL now, whereas before it was college NFL skewed to college.
He was taking game days off at USC last year to like work on his new playbook because no plays were being called. I don't know when this development happened because Caleb Williams certainly didn't have any like semblance of functional like
Whatever would work
around him.
Yeah.
Maybe he was just like in the lab working on new plays and not calling ones
In
at
a dark room. Yeah.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Weekly Blitz. Theo, we want to thank you for being on the show. You're our first guest on the show.
It was awesome. I'm down to come back anytime. This is great.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
And now, any closing remarks that you want to make where people can find you? You know, we already know that you're a big creator anyway, but still, plug yourself in anywhere that people can find you.
Listen to the Stay Hot Pod with me, Matt and Bladen. Listen to my TikToks on TikTok at Theo Ash NFL. Follow me on Twitter at Theo Ash NFL. Go throw my new Instagram post a like. It's not of football. It's just of me. But
Give him some love.
Put it on your story.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Weekly Blitz. My name is Joel Moran, Jackson McIntyre, my co-host, and shout out to Theo Ash once again for coming on the show and talking some ball with us. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next time.